we're going to move on to the last game that we've played recently, and that is March of the Ents.
Yes, and this is one of these games where people do everything. We got the designer is Tim Eisner and Ryan Swisher. The artist is Tim Eisner, Ryan Swisher, and Peter Wocken, and it's published by Weird City Games, which I believe is kickstarted and owned by them guys.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So starting off with that, I'm going to say that anybody who designs and does the art's okay. It's good. It's not right. Like amazing,
right?
But it is adequate. It pretty much is better than most Mayfair games. So,
oh wow,
sorry Mayfair.
Yeah, well, I mean,
some of your games. Anyway, March of the Ants is essentially a 4X game. You know, get guys, move out, divide, conquer kind of stuff, but not in the same vein as like Risk or Shogun, things like that. Basically, you have a colony of ants, and you start off, there's like a huge board in the middle called like the meadow or Great Meadow, or I forgot what it's called now. The whole thing is called the meadow, but the thing in the middle is something else.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's where you start. It's just multiple hex tiles together as one board. And you're trying to expand out from there and place hex tiles that have different tunnels and different resources on them that you're trying to claim, essentially. Kind of area control-ish.
Right.
On your turn, you have like a bunch of different actions to do. You can march ants around. You can spin your ants or your larvae. Your larvae start on your player board, and then they move to the board, main board as ants. But that's also what you're using to cast evolution cards.
Yes.
Because on your player board, not only does it have absolutely the craziest amount of detail on how to play the game. I thought the player board was awesome.
Yeah.
But it also has 3 spots for like a head, thorax, and an abdomen. And it evolves your ants. So you can get some really cool special powers that way. You can fight other ants. You know, basically, you're kind of passive at first. Because whenever you explore, a new tile comes out. And then ants come onto it. And it might have like, say, 4 resources in it. But a battle won't happen unless there's more ants on that tile than there are resource spots.
Yep.
Because, I mean, ants are basically programmed, right? So they want to get that stuff first. But then when there's tons of ants in there, they're like, hey, get off my stuff.
Right.
So there's some cool stuff that can happen. There's centipedes that come out on some of the tiles you have to fight. There's special tiles that have a ton of text and they do some interesting things. And overall, I will say immediately that I am not a 4X style person. It's not that I hate games like Risk or Shogun or, you know, any kind of Axis and Allies and stuff like that. It's just that I guess I'm kind of more passive in the most part, and that strategy does not work.
Right. Most
games of that genre. But when we play one-on-one, I'm all in, man. I love those style games, which is pretty much why I like miniature games. Because it's the same thing, but it's just one-on-one. I was pretty passive in this game, and I had a lot of fun. What did you think?
I was not quite as passive, and I don't know. I did all right. I think my first impression was I don't know. I grew up loving ants. I used to be the kid that would like, you know, find a dead bug and go put it by an anthill and watch them demolish it. You know, take it apart and take all the legs down the mound. And,
it is pretty fun.
You know, just being silly with this, but Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I loved Auntie. When
that
they got
movie is
Auntie,
great.
Yeah, they had Auntie. I got upset when the scorpion killed them because the ants are just cool. They're neat little. They're so alien-like.
Top 5 80s movies.
It will come.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah. So I just like ants. They're neat. So I got really, you know, pumped about this game whenever you first brought it out. I was like, okay, cool. We got colonies. We're making ants. It didn't quite turn out the way I thought. I don't know. I think there's a little bit of a. I think it's got a lot of, I don't want to say rich get richer, but it's got and I don't think games need to have a catch-up mechanic, but if you get behind in this game, it's really hard to bounce back. And the reason is because of those spots that you're holding, that gives you stuff to do more things. And if you're not getting any of that, then you're not doing anything else.
That is true. Like at the end of each round, you've got a choice to get food or to get 5 larvae. And the problem is you need food to pay for all the ants that you have out. So it does have a feed your people mechanism.
Yes.
And so getting all those resources on those tiles is extremely important because you're right. It's giving you points that you can use to create or pay for the evolution cards. And it's also giving you food in order to pay for your ants that you have out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, right, if for some reason, we played it 4 players. If for some reason you get beat down a few times,
or if you got all your eggs in one basket, meaning you're pretty much on one tile, like maybe you got 3 of the 4 spots in a tile, but then someone comes in and knocks you out, you got nothing now.
Right.
Maybe that's part of the strategy. I don't know, but
I think it is, but I think the reason it's so prevalent is because the game is very short. I mean, we played a long game because, Eric already played it once and he realized, the game's 4 rounds, 5 if you play the long game. Now, a round, you can actually do multiple things. Basically, you get actions, and it's up until, you decide you want to take the rest action.
Until 2 people rest.
Until 2 people rest, the round keeps going. And so what's interesting about resting is when you rest, the first time you rest, you get a larvae, and then every time after that, you get a food. So when you rest, if you're the first person to rest, you want it to keep going.
Right.
Because you're going to stack up on that food. Although the trade-off is everybody else is doing actions and getting way above you, potentially. And so there's a few things that if you do wrong, you could really fall behind.
Yes.
So I get what you're saying, right? I feel like I chose, in a game like this, you got 4 players, right? And it's almost like each person's going to have to play a role because not everybody can be an aggressor. Because if you have all 4 aggressors, stuff's going to come down to just...
There's not going to be anyone on the board.
Well, except for one player and who's king of the hill. And
right.
At that point, they're just going to rule over everyone. So I saw that, I think you and Kurt was doing most of the aggressive moves.
Yes.
And it's mostly because he had Kurt had a head head evolution.
Yes.
That allowed him to gain normally you only get a victory point when you participate in a battle and you win. This allows you to get a victory point either way. And if you won, you got a second one.
Which he was doing.
He was winning a bunch. You were just getting in fights.
To get points.
And so I saw Eric basically being Eric and collecting stuff.
Yeah. He
kind of went off on a separate side of the board. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do? Well, this might be a good time or a good game to try out my passiveness and just kind of sit off to the side. I think it helped that I drew the right evolution cards to do that. Because I drew some that allowed you to basically burn the larvae to gain points.
Right.
So I just collected a bunch of larvae. I made sure I was off in the distance because only the tiles next to that center tile score points as control points. And then the ones away from that don't score points, but you also want to take them because no one's going to mess with you when you're out there gaining 1 or 2 resources if you're not gaining victory points with it.
Right.
So I was like, well, I'm just going to get my food this way, gain a bunch of cards, play the evolutions that allow me to get points off of them and not have to actually have any combat. Because I think at the most I had like 5 ants on the board and you guys had like 8 or 10 or 12. Most of my stuff was larvae and I was burning it for cards because you also get extra points at the end for having sets. So if you had all 3 pieces of evolution, you get 9 points. It's like 3 points a piece.
Right.
But you had to have a thorax, a head, and an abdomen. So each set of those, each time you get a card, you place it on top of it. So I had like 3 sets of everything.
Oh, you got it per set?
Per set.
I didn't realize. I thought it was just you got it once just for doing it. I didn't realize it was per set. So
yeah, I got like 18 points out of it at the end.
Okay.
Or maybe you got 6 points for having all 3. I don't know. I basically got the set bonus 3 times. On top of that, the final round, I also played the evolution card, or I had the evolution card. I just burned, so many larvae to get 6 points.
Right.
You also get points for some other things too, I think.
Having the most cards, the most larvae, and the most food.
Yeah, it's like bonus points for having the most of that at the very end. And I got 2 of the 3. So that it looked like I wasn't doing much because I was passive and I was like pretty much in 3rd place. But then the very end, I was just like, bam.
Right.
So had we been playing it with experienced players, would my strategy work? Probably not, because they could look over my board and say, he's going to get like 20 points at the very end of this game.
Right.
And then I would get picked on at that point. So, but I do like the fact that at least in that playthrough, I could do that. I was pretty excited.
Yeah. Positives I will give it. I thought the cards were neat in the fact that they had dual purpose and that you could play the card for the ability or you needed it to attack. Because it had the attack values to help you in combat. Well, not attack values. They had a number that to add on to your ants / heads on your ant
right
value. I do think some of the cards were kind of busted.
Some of the cards seem really powerful.
And then some of them were just like, why is this even in here?
Agreed. I mean, they have different costs, but yeah, one of them, I passed up and I was like, look, I'm passive. I wanted to show you guys the card anyway because I was being more of a passive player.
Right.
But man, if I would
fungal one.
It was like you kill off a larvae and then you draw a card and the black number is how many ants or something the other player loses.
Oh, okay. That one, the one I got another one later. I thought maybe it was that card and I didn't want to king make or anything because I was in the rear.
Yeah.
But I got a card that it gave an ant a fungal infection and you moved it into a space and it pretty much killed everything. So, but like I said, I would have been king making because I didn't have a dog in the fight. So I was just like, I'm not going to like blow up someone just so,
Right. Just because.
Because.
Yeah, you're going to be targeting a space that's only going to hit one or two players.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. Especially if you're in last place. I mean, other than just saying I'm going to target the leader that way.
Yeah.
But
even then you could help someone else win though. That's why I didn't want to.
Yeah, it is a key make move. Right. At that time it was.
Yes.
There was, the black number does go from 1 to 5, but there's only one card I think that had a 5.
Yes.
That card is insane.
Mm-hmm.
It basically says you can't play it on the final turn of the game.
Right.
Because what it does is it takes everyone that has over 5 ants and puts them back on your board as larvae. So it makes everybody have 5 or less ants on the board. And we're talking, some people had like 12 out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would have been devastating.
Yes.
I had it twice.
Yeah.
And I almost got to play it on the 4th round. I would have totally done it because like I'm not doing anything. I'm just kind of off doing my own thing. And I was like, bam. But, it is good that it says it can't play it on the last round, but there's not that many rounds in the game if you play the short game. So it's got all this cool stuff. The game is still a little lengthy for the time. I mean, it's like an hour and a half.
Right.
But at the same time, you're only playing 5 rounds. Yeah, you're doing multiple actions on the rounds, and each round gets more and more actions that you're doing because you have more resources to do so with. But overall, I think that they could have did like 2 or 3 actions a round and then maybe played over 8 or 9 rounds.
Yeah. Because I don't know if I already said this, but if 2 people maybe in a 4 or 5 player game are behind, they can just speed the game up. I pass. I pass.
That's true. We didn't play it like that, did we?
It could happen. I think Curtis even brought that up.
It's like, hey, we're losing. Let's just pass in a row.
Yeah.
Bam. End of that round.
So I don't know if you might need a little change on that maybe if it started getting abused. There was another point I wanted to make. What was it?
Well, while you're looking that up,
yeah,
I don't think this is a good 2-player game at all.
Probably not, which I think Eric said Melissa hated this game, if I recall.
Yeah, he did. He came into it very lackluster. Like, yeah, I want to try this before I trade it.
Yeah.
Kind of attitude. Like, I was not very excited about 2 players, but I feel like his mind has changed, and he said he's keeping it. So,
I found what I was looking for. The reactions you can take when other people are taking actions.
Oh, that's really cool.
It was cool. We got confused a whole bunch though, so I don't know how cool it was because there was a lot of like, whose turn is it? Are we still reacting to somebody? What's going on? That seemed to go on a whole lot.
Yeah, I think that I feel like you should have a token. You got the pass marker or whatever, but you should have a token on whose player the turn it is, and then like, I don't know, either that or just make sure people are paying attention because you do an action. I don't remember which one it is, but then everybody else gets to you play a card. If you play a card, then everybody else in order gets to discard and draw a card if they so choose.
Right.
But then everybody's kind of making their own strategy off to the side and you're like, oh, what is it my turn? Oh, I thought you just went. No, I just did a reaction.
Why are we drawing cards? What's going on?
Right, yeah, because you're too focused on your own strategy, and then everybody else is doing these things, and you're like, it's my turn next?
Right.
Yeah, so you can get all the rest of them, I think, are fine because it's literally just gain a larvae or move an ant. But you do need to do them in turn order, and it's still, if people aren't paying attention, it could slow down. It's not really the fault of the game. It's just that the fact that the game has a lot of, reading cards.
Right.
So if you knew the game a lot more, you wouldn't be doing that, I think. So, Anyway, final thoughts on March of the Ants, Matt.
Wasn't the biggest fan, but I mean, I wouldn't mind trying it again. You know,
it plays 5, I think. Would you play it with more or less?
I don't know that would make a difference. I wouldn't play it 2. I think a 3-player game would be fine.
Yeah, I think 3 players could be fine. I just worry that 2 people would just fight it out a lot, and the third person can kind of go off to the side.
Which happens in a lot of 4X games.
Right.
2 people go at each other, and one person sweeps in and just cleans up their mess.
That might be why they say, I think it says that it's best with 5 or 4 on Board Game Geek. Although I wouldn't mind trying it with 5.
No.
It's short enough
that
it'd probably be okay.
Yeah.
So, March of the Ants.
Yeah.